No, I think it's a great thing that you're doing, taking on, especially at your age, getting involved with the community. That's good. And by the way, I have a butterfly garden and I got milkweed in it.
All right, thank you. All right, the second one on our list is Scott Bailing.
Scott Bailey, my address is N1358 Fairlands Drive. My question is, would the town be willing to relook at the policy of not loading mulch into the back of trailers and trucks? I know there's the issue of overweighting trucks, and I would agree with mud. I've had it where they put wet mud in my vehicle, and I was kind of iffy, I would agree. But I'm wondering if they reconsider on just the mulch, because the mulch isn't to the same heaviness or the thickness or the weight as the mud would be. So I don't believe there'd be as much of an issue with overweighing vehicles with mulch as there would be with mud. So I'm just wondering if the board would reconsider looking at that policy.
Okay, thanks. And I'll just have a couple questions, and I'm going to ask Mr. Rickard, our Public Works Director. Do you know when the policy changed so that we wouldn't load, and what are some of the reasons for not loading in your mind?
Reasons for it is obviously the various weights of the material after you have rainfall events and stuff like that. You get a lot of the clumping in the bucket, and it's pretty uncontrollable with mechanical equipment. All of a sudden, you're rotating the bucket, and all of a sudden you get a big lump that falls out of the vehicle, and then there we sit. Who's responsible for a suspension that's wrecked on a vehicle, axle that's cracked, or whatever it might be? So that we could go to a route of having some sort of a waiver that we were completely not responsible with. Our insurance agency was not aware that the action was taking place. They wanted to have a claims adjuster come out, or not a claims adjuster. They wanted to have a person come out and look at the liability of doing that type of work. And we didn't have them. We could. I just know that obviously it might negatively impact our insurance costs because they weren't aware of that activity going on.
So I also probably recommend the fact that by having the people do it themselves, you're now opening yourselves up to medical insurance claims versus vehicle claims as well now. So if somebody injures themselves loading it, now the village or the town is going to be liable for that as well then. So you're going from one potential liability to another potential liability as well.
It's something that we can dig into more. I have no issues with it. I just know that claims against vehicles and insurance claims that we deal with are.
And I completely agree with the mud, because I put wet mud in my truck, and it was kind of iffy when they did it. I would agree with that. My only question would be just the mulch and stuff like that.
I think the best way for this, and this isn't for an action or anything, we want to reduce any liability on the town, and this is a benefit that we have in the community for the citizens here, that they can come and get mulch from our yard waste site. So obviously we want to get rid of any liability of damaging somebody's vehicle, and that's most likely why our Public Works has stopped doing that. But as you brought up, if somebody's loading it on their own, could they sue the town because they hurt themselves, strained their back or whatever, trying to load something in there themselves. So maybe as part of the permitting process that happens, they would have to fill out a waiver of some sort, one way or the other, whatever direction is best for us to go forward with. And hopefully it's that we can still offer the benefit without having these consequences that would fall on the town.
I think regardless, there's probably a little bit of a physical risk involved, whether people are loading or unloading.
Always is, yeah.
Obviously, this item's not on the agenda, and we can certainly bring it back forward for further discussion, but discussing this with our liability insurance representative and our town attorney, obviously, loading and unloading a vehicle is a voluntary action by the participant and the individual, so our liability is somewhat limited from that perspective. So any risk of injury as a result of them loading mulch on there, we're not mandating that they load it. We're not mandating the type or method of loading that material onto their truck. They're assuming any and all risk and liability as they enter our yard site. That's a condition as part of that yard waste sticking permit. The insurance rep, we could certainly seek that additional coverage. Obviously, there are some concerns from their perspective that we're loading that equipment. Whether that participant is in the vehicle during the loading activity or not in the vehicle, or where they're being housed. There's a lot of risk as that's associated with that activity as well. So I think further investigation would need to be done to ensure that we are maintaining or limiting or reducing liability as it relates to the loading and unloading of vehicles and trailers.
Okay, any other questions?
That's it, thank you.
All right, thank you for your time as well. Ms. Goffard, I see that you're on our list as well.
My name is Jean Goffard, N853 Julius Drive, God's Country. I just want to give a little update on the Grange Hall. Our biggest new accomplishment is that we now have the full building being air conditioned. So we had air conditioning upstairs, but we never had it downstairs, and we just had that installed a couple weeks ago. So, and somebody gave us a very discounted rate in doing that. So, we're talking about having maybe forming a 501c3, so when people give donations, they can use them as a write-off and a tax deduction, and it would have to be like a Friends of the Grange. So that's something we're thinking about doing, and it is in the works. And the other thing is, and this doesn't have anything to do with the Grange, but is there anything in the works in the town for keeping a bit of history alive? I spoke to the second graders at the North Greenville Elementary School this spring, and on Greenville history, and their curriculum starts with local history in the second grade already. So they're pretty enthused about it. I like that. But are we preserving anything? I mean, there's some of you on the town board that have been here forever, and I'm sure have family heirlooms, and maybe have family who doesn't care for them. They don't like antiques and all that kind of stuff. But are we doing anything to have some preservation for Greenville somewhere in our town? Anything coordinated with any new facilities? Or at one time I mentioned it years ago, and they talked about having something in the Lions Park, but I don't know. I've never heard of that anymore. So if you have any ideas, I think if there's a committee that could work on that, I'd be happy to be part of it. But I think we need to do something about preserving. We're thinking new all the time, but we're not thinking about letting people, the future, know about what Greenville was all about and its past. So
Those are great comments. I know that I've had some thoughts of having a preservation society or historic society that could help out and really dedicate their time to a focused activities. You get so many people that are interested in this, but if they're not coordinated, then the resources that you have are spread so thin you can't do as much. If you can really get everybody coordinated and focus your resources in on one or two big projects, you could really make a difference on something that could be a star for the community. So it's a thought I've had, and if you've got interest in that, we should talk some more. I know that there's others that might be interested in that as well. Definitely follow other communities around the area, around the state that have these same types of groups within their community. So be helpful. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishing to speak during the public comment forum? Not seeing anybody raise their hand or stand or any other indications. So I'm going to make a motion to close the public comment forum section. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Andy Peters is given a second. All in favor to close public comment forum, please say aye. Opposed, say no. The public comment forum section is closed. That takes us into our consent agenda. We have approval of meeting minutes from the town board from June 11th, June 22nd, and June 25th. The July town vouchers, staff reports from the Sheriff's Department, Fire Department, First Responders, Park and Recreation, Urban Forestry, Constable Report, Public Works, Community and Economic Development, as well as the town administrator. Committee reports, we've got the Park Commission, and we have some operator licenses as well. There's a couple of items in here. Within this report of note, Deputy Van Berkel's activity report. She's our liaison officer from the county. Deputy Van Berkel is handling 20 calls per 4-hour shift. The difference between all other non-contracted hours, those officers are only handling 1.6 calls per 4-hour shift. So it's 10 times, actually well over 10 times the amount that Deputy Van Berkel is handling for us. So very good to have that type of service from the county available for us. So the fire department has a total runs through June of 115, up from 94 last year. So you guys are busier than ever. And then our first responders, they had 162 through June, and last year 169. So you're about on pace as you were last year, correct?
Yes.
Anything else to point out? All right. I know that we had one operator's license, correct, that we wanted to point out in here.
I would like to go ahead and table the request for an operator's license by Renee M. LaFleur-Linder.
Okay. So you're going to make a motion for the consent agenda, tabling that item? Okay, Dean's made a motion to approve the consent agenda, tabling the one operator's license.
Second.
Mark's given the second. Any questions, comments, or anything that needs to be removed? Since there are none, let's go forward to the vote for the consent agenda. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. The consent agenda is approved with that one item tabled. Item 6 will not be necessary. 7 is our old business, discussion and possible action for Resolution 1418, approving a development agreement for Savannah Heights Phase 1. Joel, do you have any comments for this?
Obviously, this is a carryover tabled item from a prior meeting. The development agreement would be a required condition of approval of the final plat, seeing that the public infrastructures for the Savannah Heights Phase 1 are incomplete as of today's date. So what we'd be looking for is approval of the development agreement that would assign the responsibilities of both the town and the developer to complete the final public improvements. That would include the road, the curb and gutter, any sidewalks or trails, things of that nature. We have received as-built drawings in accordance to prior discussions at previous meetings for the underground utilities that were installed. That would include our stormwater, sanitary sewer, water utilities. We received those, all three items as of last week, Wednesday, I believe it was. So we haven't had a formal time to, or a serious amount of time to review the as-built and enter them into our GIS system. So the development agreement, as it's being drafted and presented to you tonight, would be amended to a certain degree to include the letter of credit amount based on the condition that the as-bills have met the requirements of town specifications. This item was tabled from the last meeting. There were some concerns about some of the conditions of the preliminary plat not being included or being constructed as part of the initial construction of the Phase 1 plat, including the haul road from Design Drive to State Highway 76. It was pointed out that at a meeting in May of 2017 that there was a condition that was applied to a motion that was made in March of that same year regarding that haul road and some concerns about wetlands that are in that area. The developer has been waiting to have some legislative changes happen at the DNR level or at the state level with the DNR as it reviews those pocket wetlands. That legislation has gone into effect. They have applied for an exemption to that pocket wetland. As of today, unless something's changed, we have not heard back directly as if that exemption has been made. If it does, obviously that opens up opportunities to install that haul road in the designated location for where Design Drive will connect up to State Highway 76. We also understand that this developer is the same developer for the Towering Pines subdivision. So some of the concerns that were outlined and identified at the last meeting as it relates to the condition of Glenview Road and Alexander Way as a result of the construction traffic, those things will be rectified and repaired prior to final acceptance of those roads at a future meeting later this fall.
Okay.
Is there anything in the developer's agreement that would restrict restrict the developer until design drive is completed? The extension? Or some way for the heavy equipment to get in, not necessarily
I think it's here.
design drive, I didn't see it.
Building permits would not be allowed or be issued until the extension of design drive is complete.
But I was just wondering if it was in the developer's agreement itself.
We can include the language in the developer's
Mhm.
agreement to ensure that that condition is met.
Okay.
Essentially, they can continue to construct the infrastructure for Savannah Heights Phase 1. Even though the final plat would be recorded after the recorded signed development agreement is finalized, we still would, based on the condition of that development agreement condition, we would not issue a building permit until the extension is completed as part of Phase 2, if that's what you're desiring.
So they start, what my desire would be is that they'd stop using the existing road and build that road to finish up the plat. That would be,
And that was, I think, one of the main reasons why the item was tabled at the last meeting. So if that is the desire of the town board, we can, again, as it was stated at the last meeting, those can be the conditions that are incorporated into the development agreement. Or you just simply don't, again, approve the final plat until all the public infrastructure is installed and approved by the town.
Any other questions or comments or a motion?
this is for the developer's agreement?
Correct. If you want to put the condition in there for the building permits, I'd be fine with that. I know that even the developer's okay with that.
Section, paragraph 19.1, development agreement, was added at the request of the developer. Typically, the building permits would not be issued until the final plat is approved. But they are requesting that we accept partial acceptance of all the improvements to the utilities, with the road and other roadway improvements to be completed yet, but they would still like to be able to get building permits issued. So that was currently in the agreement as it sits in front of you this evening. But if you would like that condition removed, that could be part of your motion.
So 19.1,
Correct.
it's on 59.
So we would simply modify the language within the development agreement under that section, 19.1, to include the condition that Mark is suggesting. So your motion would be to approve the resolution with the condition or changes to the development agreement as outlined or identified by the body, the board.
Any questions, comments, or a motion?
The developer and the representative engineer are here as well, so if you have
Yeah.
any specific questions, you're more than welcome to.
Tom, do you guys have any issues with that if we don't allow the building permits to be issued?
I think, Jack,
You could still sell your lots.
right, we can still sell them, but nobody's gonna wanna buy them if they can't build on them right away, they're not gonna, we just wanna be able to go in on the road, we're gonna be getting our thing from the wetlands.
Yep.
And we just wanna run the whole thing, the infrastructure, go out there, and then, the public work director's gonna have to work with the DOT to get our thing out on the 76. So we
Right.
can put, if we put a haul road out there, and we don't have the deceleration lanes and that stuff, and somebody gets hurt out there, or gets killed, whose liability is that? You know,
That's
I
a
don't
question.
want it, but at the same time, I still think Glenview Drive is just it's our binder coat put down, it's gonna be all ground up. There's no curb there or anything, so we can't really wreck, you know, we plan on going ahead with our stuff all already, and it'll all be done by the 1st of October, all the way out to 76 if we have, and I'm sure we'll have our permit from the DOT by then, I'm sure that Ryan can work on that.
So my understanding, just for the town board and here, thank you, Tom, is that I understand where you're coming from. Nobody's gonna buy the lots if they're not able to get a building permit on them. We haven't accepted the roads, Glenview Drive or Alexandra Way. So if there's any damage on those roads, we would not accept those until they're all fixed by yourselves, because you are the developer for both subdivisions. So we obviously want to limit the amount of heavy equipment that's being driven on those roads, even there is just a base layer on there, just to reduce any issues in the future or what we might have. The permit's been requested to go through those wetland areas, and within the next few days, 10 days, we'll be up on that. And you guys, as long as you haven't heard from the DNR, then have approval to go forward. How long would it take you to put in, good weather and everything, hope for, to put that in? So how many days or weeks to get that in? 2 to 3 weeks?
2 to 3 weeks, it'll be all in. We're on Northeast's schedule already for the
Yep.
asphalting and the whole works. Same with Fisher for the curb, because the old curb that's out there,
There's-
isn't any good.
okay.
Tear that all up.
Does anybody have, and I'm not looking for answers in here, but this, I guess, best way to say it, does anybody have problems with letting this go forward, knowing the fact that they're gonna have to fix the issues that would happen at Glenview anyhow, and they're gonna have this design drive done, I would say for sure by the middle of August, depending on the DNR acknowledging or not acknowledging their permit request. The bigger question is, how long is it gonna take for the town of Greenville to get a permit for the deceleration turn lanes on 76? So I don't know how long that takes. Brian could probably give a ballpark, but it's just a ballpark,
It could take some time, anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks.
so.
Best case, I would say, is about 6.
If we can at least, you have to be able to,
Yep.
before you can use that access, you have to have a legal designated entrance and exit to that highway. Because if you don't, and with all, you start sending concrete trucks, cement mixers, excavators, in and out of there.
If there's damage on Alexandra Way, where the final layer's been put on, I know there's, I don't know, a couple hundred feet, maybe more. You guys will be replacing that as well?
Yep, you can put that in the agreement that if there's any damage done by any of the trucks, anything that goes there, we'll assume all the liability on that road, because
I'll do a walkthrough with it with Brian before we do the final paving, if he wants to do that.
Okay.
or acceptance.
One of my biggest concerns with the way it sits now is unfortunately my phone's the one that rings anytime that Glenview gets blown to pieces. And the phone calls got really old, and, I talked to, people from Bowers saying, hey, we need to get out there and dress them, we need to get out there and dress them. And, it took about 2 weeks, and I realize it takes time, but anyone driving through there, would have known for almost 2 months that it needed some attention. Instead, we're going out there and putting barricades, and people are playing Frogger to get through that way. So I'm glad it's fixed now. I'm just hoping it stays that way for the next couple months.
Well, we already have a plan on addressing that issue, to, put under drains.
Yeah, it's the things that happen, and how long does it take to get any of those holes filled in and fixed so that people aren't driving through them and ruining their cars and vehicles and things like that. That's where we gotta stay in good communication whether this goes through or not, because those holes could come up for any reason. So Brian's getting, the Public Works getting phone calls on these things. They need to be fixed in a very efficient and timely manner. So, is there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I got a question. When did you start construction on the plat?
when did we start construction on what plat? The first
Savannah Heights, what you're
Savannah
doing now?
I believe it was around mid-January, Tom, that construction began, because we were working with John Dable and his firm as far as setting up the inspection and the record drawing schedules. So it was about mid-January, I think, that things began, although there were some weather-related issues. I think things started to get probably heavy the very first part of February. And so
So
obviously.
you're cutting in roads February,
No, it was
okay?
all utility, where I think road cutting probably didn't start until the end of May, first part of June.
Putting in the utilities in February. why didn't you come off 76 instead of going through the Platte? Ground was froze.
We did come in through some of it, but then it turned out to be an issue with traffic on that highway trying to come in and out with dump trucks. It's not a safe entrance and exit to the highway to bring that much.
If I remember right, when Towering Pines was being built, there weren't acceleration and decelerations.
We put turn lanes in there. I put them in myself.
Prior to the infrastructure?
Was that? No, not prior to the infrastructure.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Most of that material came in through the other end.
Yeah, let me back up just a little bit. This is a little bit of a, complicated project for a couple reasons. One, obviously the developer in this particular case is the same developer that did Towering Pines. So that's an added value to the Savannah Heights project, being that number one, Glenview, Alexandria for the most part have not been fully completed, finished. So there's plenty of opportunity for the situation to be repaired and corrected before final paving is completed and that road is formally accepted by the town.
I understand.
With that-
My point being though is that they could have started up, putting in that Hall Road and doing whatever they needed to do that. As it was stated in the preliminary plat, they just chose not to.
I think
You
there's,
chose not to for safety reasons. You have to understand that you cannot run that much traffic in and out of that,
But
on
you-
that highway. You cannot run that much traffic in and out of that. We'll stand up here from 6 in the morning till 10 o'clock in the morning, and it is very dangerous with no signage, no turn lanes, none of that stuff. So the road that we brought in, we had turn lanes, we had deceleration lanes, we could approach the site safely. And
But you
when
knew
we did
that-
the other phase, we did not bring any of the material in through 76, we brought it in through 96 for the simple fact of the reason why that road is breaking up here is because there's being a water that drains out the side of that hill, and we could not access it through that point.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
If we're gonna have a debate, we need to start using this microphone.
Right. I think, yeah. So if there's more comments on this for Tom and Mike, we just need you to come up to the podium so that it can be recorded better. But I don't know if there's need for that or not. For me, it has been complicated because I hate it when the town puts a condition on something and it's not followed through with. We are taking actions internally to make sure that we do a better job with those things, no matter how big or small these conditions are. With the new engineering technician coming on board, will help out with that greatly. I can understand why the developer was coming in and out of Glenview. It's their road still, basically. The town hasn't accepted Glenview or Alexandria Way as road, so it's their road. They can use it. That's my opinion on it. I would prefer that the design drive extension out to 76 be completed as soon as possible. I've actually asked Mr. Rickard, our Director of Public Works, to apply for the permit for the deceleration and turn lanes as soon as possible if he hasn't already, and he's well aware of that. So with everything that's going on, I know that they're doing the best they can to move things forward with design drive. I've had the conversation with them, but it needs to be done as ASAP, so that we don't have all that heavy equipment going in and out. Not just for the damage to the roads, but we have some houses along those roadways now that have people living in them. And there's a safety concern just with the traffic going. Those bigger trucks it takes longer to slow them down, especially when they're full. So there's there's safety concerns out there. So with all that being said, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 1418, the developer's agreement for Savannah Heights Phase 1. I'd be looking for a second.
I'll second your motion.
Andy Peters is given a second. Is there any other questions or comments?
Does that include the non-issuance of building permits until that design drive is built?
No, I'm going to leave it as it's written, so they can get their building permits. Any other questions or comments? I'm not hearing any, so I'd like to go forward with a vote on this. All in favor of the motion for item 7A, this would be to approve Resolution 1418, the developer agreement for Savannah Heights Phase 1. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
Nay.
Motion carries on a vote of 4 to 1. 7B, this is consider, discuss, and act on Resolution 1318. This is the final plat for Savannah Heights Phase 1, and this is recommended for approval. Is there questions, comments, or a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 1318, final plat for Savannah Heights Phase 1.
Motion's been given with the second. Questions or comments? Not hearing any. Let's go forward with our vote. All in favor to approve Resolution 1318. This is a final plat for Savannah Heights Phase 1. Should say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
Nay.
Motion carries, a vote of 4 to 1. 8A, we're on to new business, Park Commission recommendations. We've got approval of a consultant for the Sports Complex Master Plan. Tony, if you need to speak on this one, you should come up to the podium. If you'd have to. So it looks like we've got a bid for, we have 5 different bids come in for this one? And is there a reason why we're not going with the low bid? I guess that's the only question I'd have.
Sure. Want me to come up?
Probably best, yes.
As Tony's coming up, I'll just make note that this was a request for proposals, not competitive bidding, so there are a variety of
Okay.
conditions and requirements that needed to be met in order to qualify as a competent proposal. So Tony will kind of go through that discussion, but that's the primary reason why this is not going to the low bidder. It wasn't a competitively bid process.
Okay. So we had a budget amount for this, and I'm trying to be fiscally responsible. I'm sure you're trying to stay within that. So some of them are definitely bidding themselves out of the work. So in your opinion, why are you going with this over another?
Yeah, so we, like you mentioned, we did get 5 proposals when we put out the request for proposal. And all 5 of them met our proposal requirements with what we were asking for as far as the proposal itself goes. As you can see, we had a unbelievable range as far as the cost goes. So we had 2 of them that were over budget that basically bid themselves out of it, weren't considered. Beyond, we did look at all the proposals and rated them based on the different selection criteria, and that is attached so you can see how the different companies rated as far as their proposal goes. We looked at their qualifications, experience, the personnel they have, project samples, their ability to engage the public, their creativity, communication skills, and then just overall quality of the proposal. So cost was just one element that we were analyzing with these proposals. Obviously, it's an important aspect of it, and we did see the 2 that were over budget. There was nothing those 2 showed that warranted any further consideration to go over budget for them. So then we were left with 3, and their lowest one was Point of Beginning. I had met with this company ahead of time. They did provide a low price on that, which is admittedly very intriguing. But their level of experience with this type of project isn't the same as the other companies. They primarily work in the school district area. Not that, they're not capable, but their experience level isn't exactly there. So based on that, and based on the fact that their proposal was, it seemed a little more vague as far as what services we would get out of this package that they were proposing. Whereas the other 2 that we were considering were a lot more detailed. We felt that we were getting more with these other companies than we would with the lowest bidder. So that is why we eliminated Point of Beginning, and then we really concentrated between Ayers Associates and Rattler Corporation. And so then what you'll see on the other attachment is a scope of services comparison. So we took our proposals, we took a look at those a lot closer as far as the scope of services goes. What are we getting for our money. And so I listed that out as far as our meetings, plans, drawings, and what we would get out of that final report. And there were some differences. We get one additional meeting out of Rattler Corporation versus Ayers Associates. And then one of the really intriguing things about Rattler Corporation is that in their final report, they address future maintenance costs, whereas none of the other consultants address that at all in their proposals. And then, in addition to those scope of services, we just looked at the overall proposals. And Rattler Corporation, they have vast experience in sports complex type facilities for municipalities, for park and recreation departments. It's kind of one of their specialties. So their experience level, the projects they've done in the past, really shined. And when you look at the pricing, Ayers Associates came in at $12,650. Rattler Corporation came in at $16,020. So given the project budget, those are both underneath our budget, and they are relatively closely priced. So we felt comfortable with Rattler Corporation making that recommendation because we feel it is the best. They're the best consultant that would fit our particular project. We really want to focus on putting together a really nice master plan for this park. Obviously, we've had this property a long time. We really want to get this ball rolling, and we feel they're the best company to do that for us.
Okay. One of the things I stressed to you, Tony, as well as the committee that was formed around some of this year and a half ago, I think, is when they were deciding on things. Maybe it's less than that. Is just how are we going to fund this? What are some opportunities for grants or even sponsorships and things like that? So I'm glad that that's in both of these. And I can see where you're coming from with your recommendation. I thank you for explaining it. With everything that you stated, I'll make the motion to approve the hiring of Rattler Corporation to complete the sports complex master plan.
I'll second your motion.
I'm gonna make you guys arm wrestle, so I'm gonna give it to Mark. All right, Mark's given the second. Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment, many years ago, before the Lions bought their land, or just as we did, we went through a similar thing, and we were down to those two same firms, and we did go with Rattler, and I'm very, very comfortable with what they did.
That's good.
So
Good
I
recommendation.
feel very safe with them.
So a motion's been given with a second. Any other questions or comments? Since there are none, let's go forward with our vote. All in favor to approve the motion as stated for the approval of Rattler as a consultant for this sports complex master plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, Tony. Motion carries 5-0. Next up is discussion and possible approval of special event applications. The first one is for St. Mary's Oktoberfest. Second is for the Greenville Stars baseball tournament. We need to vote on these separate, or can we do them together?
I think you can vote on them together, just include both special event applications in your singular motion.
So St. Mary's, we haven't had any issues with it in the past for their use of Lions Park. The Greenville Stars baseball program is new, looking for use of Community Park, and doing their own concessions. So I'll make a motion to approve the special event applications for St. Mary's Oktoberfest and the Greenville Stars baseball tournament.
Second.
Mark's given the second. Questions or comments? Not hearing any, so let's go forward with our vote. All in favor to approve the special event applications for St. Mary's and Greenville Stars, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Special event applications are approved. 8B, discussion and possible action resolution providing for the sale of $2,070,000 in general obligation promissory notes, Series 2018A.
As you know, in the 2018 town budget, a capital improvement plan was identified as part of the budget process. In order to finance those capital improvement projects, the town would be required to borrow about $2 million in promissory notes. We've gone ahead and prepared the preliminary or initial resolution to borrow those notes. Brian Raymer from Ehlers Association, or Ehlers Inc., is here to kind of go through that packet of information. So Brian, if you wouldn't mind coming up and walking through that.
Hi, as Joel said, I'm Brian Raymer with Ehlers. I'm also here with my colleague Todd Taves. Consistent with what Joel just said, and as he states in his memo, we've provided a pre-sale report that goes through the 2018A GEO bond or GEO note issue. So the first item that I'd like to point you to is page 5 and table 1 in the pre-sale. Just shows that the total amount needed for projects is $2 million plus the estimated issuance expenses to get to your net bond size of $2,070,000. And then on the preceding page, which is page 6, that just shows, you know, the repayment schedule, principal and interest annually. So you'll see we show your existing debt and the tax rate that existing debt proposes, and then with the new debt and the effect that would have on your tax rate with the increase in the second column from the right. Beyond that, the third and final table just shows the impact to your total debt limit with the existing in the first 5 left columns and the proposed debt on the next 4 to the right. Not much increase there from this issuance, and nothing else to note. I would take any questions from the board.
Okay, it's fairly well spelled out for all of us. Those on the town board have been part of conversations leading up to this, so I think we're pretty familiar with everything that's going on, although there may be some questions or comments. For those that are in attendance, you might be curious of what this is going to pay for. So some of the items that this covers. So we need some general government things. We need to pay for some election equipment that is not an option for us. We needed to transition over to that. There's also for the fire and rescue, there's a washer extractor for their turnout gear that was going to be purchased, self-contained breathing apparatus, new equipment for that. A lot of this would be going through for Public Works for Julius Drive and the reconstruction of the project there. There's a tandem dump truck with winter maintenance. Some preliminary road reconstruction and planning on Greenwood Road, School Road, and South Creek Drive, as well as Hillview Road and School Road. And then some new things that have come into the town or will be the new bleachers at Community Park are paid for out of this, which are almost all installed. Weather in April kind of held us back from finishing that out. And we're looking at putting some lighting on the sledding hill at Jenner John for safety in the later afternoon and evening hours for people that use that hill at that time. So those are a few of the things that these will help out with. Any other questions or comments from the board? Otherwise, take a motion.
I got one.
Go ahead.
If the referendum passes for the $6.5 million, do you know what kind of impact this will have?
We've prepared several options for that in talks with staff. That has been provided in other analyses outside of this issuances, or outside of this issue, I should say. And I guess can be further analyzed once that referendum is passed.
So when we looked at the referendum values, we understood that we, based on the town board action of bonding up to 6.5 million, we'd be looking at an average net tax rate impact of 25 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. That's that factor of 6.5 million plus the issuance costs. So as it's being proposed now and being provided to the public as part of the educational or informational campaign for the referendum, typical residents are looking at about a 25 cent per $1,000 of assessed value for the cost of the fire station. This is mutually exclusive to that. We wanted to make sure that they were separate. they weren't confusing, that this is, if the referendum does not pass, this still needs to go forward to fund the other projects and vice versa. Beyond that, if you were an owner of a $200,000 home, that $6.5 million is roughly about a $50 per year annual cost for that 20-year bond issuance.
Any other questions or comments or a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 25-18, providing for the sale of $2,070,000 general obligation promissory notes, series 2018A.
Second that.
Motion's been given with a second. Is there any other questions or comments? I'm not hearing any. So let's go forward with our vote. Do we want to do a roll call on this? Any issues? All right. Mike?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Dean? Aye. Jack Anderson's an aye. So the motion carries. Resolution providing for the sale of the $2,070,000 in general obligation promissory notes is approved. That takes us to item 9. I believe this is necessary, correct? Pick up my microphone again. It says item 9, if necessary, for the closed session.
There's 2 other items on there that do need to be discussed in closed session. The Savannah Heights Development Agreement was only necessary if desired by the town board, but seeing that was approved in open session, that particular item is unnecessary.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to go into closed session. This is pursuant to section 19.85, paragraph 1, subparagraph E of the Wisconsin State Statutes, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public property, investment of public funds, or conducting other specified public business when competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Second.
Second by Mr. Strobel. And we're going to do roll call for this one. Mike?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andy? Dean? Jackson, aye. So we'll go into the other room. We'll be back. All right, Joel is almost back and seated. So the town board has made the motion to come out of closed session and it was accepted. So we are back in open session. There are no actions to take as part of the closed session. Is there any announcements, Joel?
Tomorrow, Tuesday, July 10th at 5:30 p.m., the Greenville Facilities Committee will be meeting briefly over at the Fire Safety Building to conduct their monthly meeting. That will be in advance of the 6 p.m. public informational meeting and open house at the fire station for the upcoming August 14th, 2018 referendum. So again, that's at that particular open house is at 6 o'clock, so we invite the public to attend that meeting. In addition to that, the referendum on August 14th, we are receiving requests for absentee ballots currently by mail. So if individuals are interested in voting their partisan primary ballot, which includes the referendum, they can do so by requesting to the clerk a ballot by mail. In-person absentee voting is currently scheduled right now to begin on Tuesday, July 17th. So people or interested voters can come down to the town hall during our normal business hours and vote in-person absentee for that upcoming election. Beyond that, Eric Katowski, Deputy Fire Chief, and myself will be at the Greenville or Fox West YMCA this coming Wednesday from 7 to 8:30 a.m. to have a table to present information on the upcoming referendum there. We'll be doing that not only on Wednesday but also on Tuesday and Thursday the following week as well to try to generate some more information. Residents in Greenville should have received a postcard or will be receiving a postcard very soon on the upcoming referendum. So I know some mailboxes received them over the weekend, some maybe are forthcoming. The newsletter will also be hitting your mailboxes very soon. The first probably, I think, 4 or 5 pages in the newsletter highlight that, the referendum question as well. So I think we're well on our way in trying to educate and inform the general public of the upcoming referendum in August. We are looking to hold our incorporation review hearing with the Circuit Court. It was originally scheduled for July 16th. That date is going to be postponed to allow for a Class 2 public notice to be filed. The town of Ellington would like to be an intervener in that process, and we anticipated that. We're hoping through the process of incorporation we can enter into a boundary agreement with them and other neighboring townships to ensure that we can have positive interveners in relation to that process. So I'll keep the board informed as to when that hearing is rescheduled. Beyond that, that's what I have for this evening.
So our next meeting then is the 23rd, Planning Commission at 5:30, Town Board afterwards. Parks are the 24th or the 31st? 31 at Jen or John. Okay. I don't have any other announcements, so we'll just need a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned at 7:40 PM.